Real Estate and Mortgage Show, your go-to spot for everything home buying, selling, and financing on News Talk 580 CFRA.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Well, I could say it's going to be a little bit of a quiet show. We don't have Motormouth in the studio here today. You know, Frank's.
Why are you, Paul?
Oh, there he is. There's Frank.
Frank is joining us from home, so it's beautiful here in the studio without Frank. That's for sure.
And we have a special guest on the line today as well. We've got Glenn Tomlinson from our team, Paul Rushforth Real Estate. And Glenn, there was some amazing, exciting news this week about Bill C-4. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Craig. It's great to be on. And some real exciting news. I'm super excited about it, actually. It's a great time to be a first-time buyer.
Yeah, so Glenn is a self-imposed nerd of stats. He knows that, and Glenn has been following this bill like a hawk. And I asked Glenn to call in because, you know, I know a lot about the bill, but Glenn is like the master. He knows this bill inside out. So, Glenn, why don't we get to some nuts and bolts about this bill, you know, the C-4. Tell us what it is and what's happened for first-time home buyers for brand-new builds.
Yeah, so basically, Bill C-4 is the federal 5% GST exemption on new construction for first-time home buyers. So maximum rebate on this is going to be $50,000, so up to $1 million purchase, and then it tailors down as you hit 1.5, and then it ends. But so first-time buyers, basically 18 plus, Canadian citizen or permanent residents, and if you've owned in the past, this is where it's actually really interesting as well, because first-time buyer doesn't mean you've never owned before. So for this particular program, if you've not owned in the previous 4 calendar years, you would qualify for this program.
Oh, wow. Well, that's quite the only 4 years.
Yeah.
4 calendar years. Yeah, exactly. So if you sold in 2021, you could qualify for this again. Or if you were lucky enough and you sold at the peak of the market in 2022, January next year, you qualify for this program.
So, Glenn, let me ask you this question. So the federal government, 5% has been approved. Now, the provincial government was going to attach another 8% to make it the HST of 13%, which hasn't been done yet, correct?
So I was doing some digging again this morning, and I found all the paperwork on the CFRA website for the federal rebate, the 5%. So that's all good to go now. As far as the Ontario-specific one, so that was announced in October with the fall economic statement, and it was all conditional upon Bill C-4 being approved. And so the bill is now approved, so I'm expecting in the coming days that we're going to get more information on that. But as far as I understand from what I've read, this is all coming into play.
That's listen, if they attach that extra 8% and you got 13%, obviously the upper limit is not going to be $50,000 anymore. It's going to be much higher. Yeah, $130,000 on a $1 million home. So I think this is, great news for builders, for one. It's great news for first-time home buyers, and I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. This bill was introduced in May of 2025, but they are now making it retroactive to March 20th, 2025, right, Glenn? So if you bought a townhome between March 20th, 2025 and today, going forward, how long does this bill go, Glenn?
So it isn't permanent. So this is a temporary tax relief. So it's set up for an effective date from March 20th, 25, like you said, and it runs through till December 31st, 2030. And then the home must be substantially completed before 2036.
Okay.
Oh, so even doing a purchase in the year 2030, you would still qualify even if you weren't taking a possession until 2033.
36.
Correct.
Yeah, up to 36.
Yes, up to 36.
Okay.
Before 2036. So it would have to be in 2035 that it would be substantially completed.
That makes sense. So, Glenn, what does this look like for an average first-time home buyer? Most first-time home buyers aren't buying $1 million property, I would imagine. So what does that look like in Ottawa for our average sale price?
Well, for example, we're selling a bunch of these townhomes that are priced right around that $500,000 price point, which is for a lot of first-time buyers, that's an accessible price point. And so the savings there are significant. Essentially, most builders are advertising their prices, including the tax. So just to get a rough idea what it would look like, basically you would add the existing $24,000 rebate to that purchase price, and then subtract 13% from it.
Wow.
Whoa.
So you're getting so here's where the tough part might come in. And I mean, I can answer this question, but I'll get your opinion on it as well, Glenn. What do you think this does to the resale market? Like, I know if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of new builds, it may not affect you that much. But what does this do to Orleans, to Kanata, to Barrhaven, to Findlay Creek, to Riverside South? You have a resale home that's on the market, yet you can go buy a brand new build for
13% less.
13% less. Do you think we're going to have a little bit of a slide on the resale market?
I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility. How much impact that has, I was actually, being a stats nerd, looking up some information, and according to the Canadian Home Builders Association, it was 5.8% of the buyers were first-time home buyers. So how much of an impact is that going to have on the resale? I'm not totally sure, but you'd certainly be able to use that as leverage in negotiating, I would think.
Well, okay, so just under 6% were first-time home buyers last year. That's how many first-time home buyers have taken themselves out of the market.
That's a crazy stat, actually.
But you're saying first-time home buyers who bought new builds, or just first-time home buyers?
So that's stats from the Canadian
Home Builders.
Okay, so it's only
that would be new construction.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
So it's only going to affect us about 6%. So I don't think that will impact the resale market that much at all, which is great, because I've already had some questions from people who we have their home for sale and they are a resale home and they're in an area that does have quite a few new builds, and they asked me my opinion. I didn't have that 5.8% stat, which is great I have now, but I said it could impact you, but keep in mind there's lots more buyers out there that aren't first-time home buyers. They're move-down buyers. There's people who, are lateral buyers. They're not first-time home buyers. They've already owned. So I don't think it's going to impact the resale market. So don't panic, resale market. You're still going to be in good shoes. Glenn, let me ask you this question, and this might not be known yet, but okay, so I bought March 21st of 2025. I've already closed on my townhome. What happens now? Is the government kicking you back that 13%?
That was my exact question.
Or, or I haven't closed yet. I'm assuming the builder just takes that off the price. But what if I have closed? Are you getting a cashback rebate, or what are you getting?
So, yeah, as far as the federal component, the paperwork and the forms are now on the CRA website. I checked this morning. They're there. There's also the mechanisms in place on the federal component for builders to be able to rebate, but I would recommend any buyer that has a purchase agreement, they need to review it with their lawyer and see what the verbiage is on that rebate, whether the builder can apply for it or if it's going to be the buyer that would have to apply for it. But going forward, for properties that have not closed, the builders will have that ability.
Okay.
So the builders are just taking it off the price. They
can take it off the price.
They can. Okay.
Yeah. Which I think most will. Where it's going to get scary, though, is, and I hope builders aren't going to do this, is they're going to start advertising the price with the HST off it. The problem is not everyone's a first-time home buyer.
That's right.
So how are they going to say, okay, oh, by the way, you can have this townhome for $460? Only if you're a first-time home buyer in an asterisk. So
yeah, this is where there's some nuances to this that, a first-time buyer or someone who thinks they're a first-time buyer really needs to get some advice on that because not everyone will qualify for this.
Now, I know we've talked about this, Frank, regarding the mortgage side, like qualifying for it. Glenn, was there any verbiage about qualification in the final bill, or like how are we looking at that now?
So essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on the lending, but as far as the lenders are concerned, I think up until Thursday, they had to treat this as though it didn't exist. So you would have had to qualify at the higher price point. Now, going forward, I think that would be a good question for a lender as far as at what point or what number does the buyer have to qualify? I think if it should be the lower number. But
do you know that answer, Frank? Has it been known yet?
I don't, because I too saw that it passed on Thursday, and I reached out to default insurers first because they're the ones that generally get involved in this based on the fact that most first-time home buyers have less than 20% down, and they had not been told how to treat these yet. So here it passes, and again, typical, rules that get them put in place, and they look at their side of it, but they don't look at everything else that has to be part of the transaction, and that's the financing end of it. So they're going to do some research and then let us know early this week. We have not received anything in writing so far as to how to treat these. Now, you're right. If somebody closed already, then it's got to be done through a lawyer. But if somebody has a purchase agreement currently and we've got them approved, then we can approve them at the lower amount, and that's going to be awesome for them, obviously, because it's going to knock off a bunch of money off of their default insurance if we're using the lower amount.
And I would think, if I was a guessing man, I know we don't have any concrete answer yet, but if I was a guessing man, I'm going to guess that they will be pre-approved at the lower amount. Is what
I hope so.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Well, it'll get more first-time home buyers in the market too, which will be awesome
for sure.
So on the federal part of it, for the forms that I was able to read this morning, where builders were able to or will be able to apply that to the purchase price, that would just make sense that it would be the lower purchase price, much like the existing $24,000 rebate that everyone else has on new construction.
Yeah. So, Glenn, we have to go to break now, and I know you have showings. If anyone wants to get a hold of you to help them with their real estate needs from Paul Rushforth Real Estate, how do they get a hold of you, Glenn?
Through the office or
just what's your email?
It'll be Glenn@paulrushforth.com.
And that's 2 N's on Glenn.
2 N's.
Thanks, Glenn. We really appreciate the information and for being such a stat nerd for everybody.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks a million, Glenn.
Thanks,
Talk
Glenn.
to you soon.
Take it easy.
All right. Folks, if you have a question about this or anything else, head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com and you could submit your question there or give us a call at 521-TALK, 521-8255. We will be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Just a reminder, if you have a question and you can't call in, head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com. You could submit it there and we'll answer it on the air, probably next show, but
depending if you get in early, maybe this show.
Or Frank and Paul will definitely reply to you long before the next show, personally to answer your questions. So send them over to realestateandmortgageshow.com and you can submit them there.
You know what I was thinking about just as after, Glenn came on and gave us some great information and stuff like that. How weird is it that this bill has been introduced and we're not really 100% sure what happens if you already purchased, if you have a purchase agreement in place. Mortgage brokers don't understand whether, wouldn't it be prudent? We've been working on this bill for a year. Wouldn't it be prudent if said, maybe a week ago, hey, mortgage brokers, here's what you need to do. Hey, realtors, here's what happens. Hey, lawyers,
here's how it works.
Here's how it works. But we're in the dark.
Yeah, Frank, you must have been getting some questions about it over the last couple of months, I would imagine.
Well, we've been getting questions, and the questions are, it's got to wait until it passes, and so now the federal part has passed. We have not heard about the provincial, although Doug Ford made it very clear that as soon as the royal assent happened on the federal side, that they would institute it right away. They may not be maybe in the House, and that's why they haven't passed it yet on the provincial side. But again, what's disappointing is Paul's right. It's 10 months in the making, and somehow we were still unsure of how to treat these purchase agreements from a financing standpoint. I'm sure the lawyers are feeling the same way as we are. Like, how do we treat these things? Yeah. It's just, it's mind-boggling that after this long, it's one thing if you introduce something and there's points that need to be, clarified. It's another thing when it's in the making as long as it has, and still we've got a lot of question marks.
Well, we obviously everyone knows we sell all the homes for Clement Homes, and they're a first-time home buyer home in townhomes and condos, and they're a big builders putting out a lot of homes. So when we're showing them, we get those questions all the time. So what is the rules? What happens? What happens here? What happens there?
We don't know.
Well, we know, we think this is what's going to happen. We don't 100% know, but here's what we think is going to happen. And I'm sure this week will be pretty ironclad about what exactly is going to happen, which is good. But just know, if you've already purchased and you've already closed, because we've had this question twice or maybe even 3 times on the show, if you've already purchased and closed, if you've bought from March 20th, 2025 and up till today, plus going up to 2030, you're good. you are good. You are going to either get a rebate or whatever's going to happen, but you are good. So don't panic.
All right. We've got a call from Linda in Almont who has a question about the new bill. Linda, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, hi. I'm just wondering, does that apply to someone privately building on their own lot? Say they had a builder that was going to build the house for you, but, it's not.
But are you a first-time home buyer?
Yeah, are you a first-time home buyer?
They would be. I'm calling on behalf of.
Oh, okay, got it.
On behalf of them. So I believe, yes, if you have it's probably going to be rules of they have to be a Terrion builder, which I'm assuming most are. But I listen, Linda. To be honest with you, I'm not going to say 100%. I know that this answer is correct, but I do believe as long as you're being built by a builder and you're a first-time home buyer, you should qualify. Let me underline should.
Yeah.
But I would definitely look into that because more rules will come out. We'll probably have the full bill and all the guidelines, in
the next couple of weeks.
In the next couple of weeks. But if I was to be a guessing man, I would say that you will be fine on that as well.
I agree, Linda, because a first-time buyer is a first-time buyer and a new build's a new build. It shouldn't have to be specific to certain builders. It should be anybody that builds. So I think that's the whole goal of this, right? Is to get houses built. And if it's a first-time buyer, then it's a first-time buyer. So I can't see how you wouldn't qualify for it. But like Paul said, as we get more clarification on everything, I think your lawyer will probably be the go-to at that point, unless it's being financed. If it's being financed, then the lender may be able to help on that front as well. So.
Okay, I'm going to try and get them to go through you.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
Right.
Thanks for the call, Linda. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. Like just with the lack of knowledge on it, but I'd never even considered that somebody that's bought a lot and planning to build. If
should like Frank said, if you're a first time home buyer and you're buying a new build, you should qualify. And listen, I think this is a good thing. I know there's a lot of people that are a little bit queasy in the resale market, like we talked about, because of this. But I do believe it's going to be a great thing. As Glenn said, only 5.8% of all new builds were first-time home buyers last year. That's a tiny percentage. It's not huge at all. So I wouldn't, if I'm a resale home right now, I wouldn't panic too much. I think you're going to be fine. But I just think it's a great bill to get first-time home buyers back in the market. And we've seen them out of the market for so long because of COVID, because of rates, because of prices that, as prices are stabilizing here and rates are starting to come down, I think we will start seeing some new builds coming in. However, saying that about rates, we go to Frank on this one because let's talk about the job report and everything.
Frank, so the good news this week was C-4 got royal assent. The more rough news this week was the job report numbers.
Well, what about a consensus? The consensus was they were going to add 10,000 jobs, and the report comes out with a loss of 84,000 jobs. So those are again, if you're looking for lower interest rates, that's what leads to lower interest rates. Although I do not believe the Bank of Canada will make any movement whatsoever on. And again, Bank of Canada is this coming Wednesday. Their announcement is this coming Wednesday. The expectation across the board is that there's going to be no movement whatsoever, not because of the job report, because the job report would certainly lean them towards maybe we got to do a little bit more with the interest rates, but because of the geopolitical issues that are happening and the fact that oil is now at very elevated levels. So therefore, the worry now is, finally we have inflation under control, and now oil is probably going to throw a little curveball at it. Now, most economists will say that it's a 2 or 3 month lag for the oil to really catch up to the inflation report. So, a lot of them will say that if this war can somehow end in the next week or two, the likelihood of inflation going up tremendously is slim, and therefore it won't impact Bank of Canada's decision. But for now, as much as Bank of Canada might have a little bit of, urgency maybe to do a little bit about lowering the Bank of Canada rate, they won't do it because their concern now is on the inflation side.
The inflationary pressures, certainly. When's the next inflation report, Frank?
Monday. So that'll be interesting.
Oh.
But again, Monday's report won't capture what's going on now.
Right.
It's a month behind. So, the inflation report, the one that comes out a month from now, will be the one that they'll be looking at more closely. Now, after the March 18th, the next Bank of Canada announcement's on the 29th of April. So Bank of Canada will have 6 weeks of data, a couple of more, probably one more job report for sure. The inflation report, obviously, the GDP is still expected to be weak. Again, we still have elevated trade policy concerns, especially with CUSMA coming to an end. We have geopolitical uncertainty right now. So those are the things that Bank of Canada is worried about right now, where, normally with job losses of that nature would certainly make them lean towards a Bank of Canada rate cut. Unfortunately, at this point, all the other concerns that they have are just leaving them on the sidelines for now. But I'll tell you, if we have another job report like we do the next month and the month after that, I don't think they'll have a choice but to start lowering prime rate again.
No, for sure, regardless of what the inflation numbers come back.
Before we have to go to break here, but before we do go to break, I want to mention that for Linda, if you're still listening, Glenn actually did text me and say, yes, you would qualify for the rebate. Owner build would qualify. He also mentioned that 5.8% is a Canadian stat, which could be higher in areas with more affordability, meaning Ottawa. So it could be a little bit higher in Ottawa, but just saying it's a Canadian stat. So if people come ranting and raving, it's a Canadian stat. But good news for Linda that they will qualify for the rebate, which is awesome.
Awesome. Anybody, if you have a question and you can't give us a call, head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com. You could submit your question there or give us a call at 521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back.